Chapter 22. Julian. Monica hadn't told Julian she was coming. Julian suspected she deliberately caught him unawares, so he couldn't protest. She was standing on his doorstep, clutching a bucket filled with cleaning products in various garish colors, bright yellow rubber gloves on her hands. Had she worn those in public? Surely not. "It's a quiet day at the cafe today," she said, "so I thought I'd come round and give you a bit of a spring clean." He must have looked as alarmed as he felt, because she quickly added, "Not you. Your cottage. Don't worry, it's really not a chore. Cleaning is one of my all-time favorite activities, honestly. And this place is just an amazing..." She paused for a few seconds before pulling out the word challenge like a rabbit from a hat. "This, my friend, is the Rolls Royce of cleaning projects." "Well, that's jolly kind of you, old girl," he said, although he wasn't entirely sure that it was. She bustled past him into the hall. "But it's really not necessary. I like it just the way it is, honestly. Apart from anything else, it smells of Mary. If you start attacking the place with all that stuff, you'll wash her right away." She couldn't exactly argue with that, could she? Monica stopped and turned to stare at him. "Julian, no offense, but..." Julian resisted the urge to put his fingers in his ears. People always used that expression right before saying something really, really offensive. "Are you telling me that Mary smelled of mildew, dust, and something unidentifiable that must have died under your kitchen cabinets?" "Well, no, of course not," he replied, horrified and a bit cross, actually. Maybe Monica sensed this because she took his hand in hers, thankfully having removed the ridiculous, ugly gloves first. "Tell me what your cottage smelled like when Mary was here, Julian," she said. Julian closed his eyes and thought hard for several minutes as he layered one scent on top of the other in his mind. "I remember rose blossom, homemade strawberry jam, and fresh lemons. That hairspray that came in big gold cans. Oh, and paint, obviously," he said. "Okay, give me half an hour. I'll be back," said Monica, and disappeared as abruptly as she'd arrived. When she returned, 29 minutes later, she was carrying even more stuff. She piled her bags in a corner and stood in front of them so he couldn't see what was inside. "Julian, I think it's probably best if you go out and leave me to it," she said. "Go and sit in the cafe. I've told Benji to put whatever you want to eat or drink on the staff tab. Stay away as long as you can. I'm going to need a while." Julian, who was beginning to learn that arguing with his new friend was a waste of time and energy, left and spent a very pleasant afternoon chatting to the people coming and going in Monica's cafe. Benji taught him how to make a proper cappuccino using the coffee machine that was the size of a small car and just as complicated. Then he and Benji spent ages giggling like naughty schoolboys over Monica's customer notes and adding a few made-up ones of their own. He was trying very hard not to think about the devastation being wrought in his cottage. For the first time in as long as he could remember, perhaps forever, Julian knocked on his own front door. He was rather nervous about going in and feeling like a visitor rather than the owner. After a minute or two, Monica appeared, her hair wrapped in a scarf from which several damp tendrils had broken free. Her face was flushed and her eyes sparkled, as if she'd spring cleaned them too. She was wearing one of Mary's pennies. Where on earth had she found that? "I'm afraid I've only done the sitting room and the kitchen," she said. "I'll come back and do the rest another day. Come in." "Monica," he said, "it's been transformed." And it had. Light streamed through the windows, hitting surfaces that were cleared and polished. The rugs had gone from being a collection of sludgy colors to bright and vibrant, and there wasn't a cobweb in sight. It looked like a home again. as if Monica had washed away 15 years along with all the grime. "What can you smell?" she asked. He closed his eyes and inhaled. "Lemons, definitely," he said. "Yep, I use lemon-scented cleaning products. What else?" "Strawberry jam." "Right again. Simmering on the clean and shiny hob in the kitchen. We'll need to find some jam jars. Take a seat while I finish up." Monica disappeared outside and came back carrying 3 large bunches of roses, which she must have hidden in the courtyard. She bustled around, finding vases and arranging them on various surfaces. "And now," she said theatrically, "for the finishing touch." And she produced a can of Elnet hairspray, exactly the brand Mary had used, and spritzed it around his sitting room. "Close your eyes, Julian. Now, does it smell like it used to when Mary was here?" He leaned back in his favorite armchair, which didn't feel greasy any longer, and inhaled. And it did. He wanted to keep his eyes closed forever and to stay in 2003. But it needed one last thing. "Monica," he said, "we have to do some painting. I'll give you a private lesson. It's the least I can do." Julian threw open the double doors from the sitting room into his studio. He pulled out a roll of canvas, spread it out on the floor, and started to mix paint with linseed. "This evening, Monica, we are going to do Jackson Pollock. I've watched you draw. It's all very neat and precise. You tried to copy exactly what you see. But Pollock said, 'Painting is self-discovery. Every good painter paints what he is.' He said it's about expressing your feelings, not just illustrating. Here, take this brush." He handed Monica a brush almost the size of her hand. "Pollock used household paints, but I don't have any, so we're using oils mixed with linseed and turpentine." He laid his canvas on the ground and painted in the air over it, using his whole body to do so, like a ballerina. "Are you ready?" He suspected she wasn't, and could see that she was worried about messing up his newly restored cottage, but she nodded anyway. He went back into the sitting room, selected a vinyl album, and placed it on the turntable. There was only one man up for a task this theatrical: Freddie Mercury. Julian took off his shoes and slid across the now polished and shiny wood floor, back into the studio singing Bohemian Rhapsody, with all the gusto, if not the talent, of Freddie. He picked up a brush, dunked it in a pot of burnt sienna, and flicked it across the canvas, scattering paint into a wide arc. "Go, Monica, go!" he cried. "Use your whole arm. Feel it from your stomach. Let it out!" She started off small at first, but he watched her as she started to laugh, to loosen up, hurling paint over her head like a tennis player serving from the baseline, scattering drops of cadmium red in her hair as she did so. Julian slid the whole length of the canvas in a wide plie, showering paint as he went with sharp flicks of the wrist. "Will you, Monica? Will you do the fandango? What is a fandango, anyhow? And who the hell is Scaramouche?" And they both collapsed, exhausted and laughing, on the floor next to their wonderful riot of color. The smell of fresh paint hung in the air above them, mingling with the scent of roses, lemons, jam, and Elnet. "Did Mary die at home, Julian?" Monica asked, when they'd calmed down and were breathing normally again. "I do know how it feels. You know." "I don't want to talk about it, if you don't mind," Julian said, cutting her off abruptly. Then he felt awful. It had sounded like she wanted to tell him something. Thankfully, she changed the subject. "Didn't you and Mary ever have children?" Monica asked. Christ, this topic was hardly any better. "We tried," replied Julian. "But after a series of ghastly miscarriages, we decided it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't an easy time." This was a bit of an understatement. "And you didn't want to adopt?" asked Monica, like his dog Keith, refusing to give up a bone. "No," he said, which wasn't really the truth. Mary had been desperate to adopt, but he'd vetoed the idea. He hadn't seen the point of children if he couldn't pass on his own genes. Imagine scrutinizing your own child's face forever, wondering where it had come from. He suspected that this explanation wouldn't make him sound very sympathetic. People were strangely sentimental about babies. "Do you have any other family? Siblings, nephews, and nieces?" Monica asked. "My brother died in his 40s. Multiple sclerosis. Horrible disease," Julian replied. "I wasn't as much help as I should have been. I'm not at all good with physical imperfections. One of my many failings. He didn't have children. My sister, Grace, immigrated to Canada back in the 70s. She hasn't been back for more than a decade. Too old to do the journey, she says. She has 2 children, but I haven't seen them since they were babies. Except on Facebook. Marvelous invention, that. Although, I'm glad it wasn't around when I was still beautiful. I may have become obsessed." He realized he was gabbling. "So, who are you planning to spend Christmas with?" asked Monica. Julian pretended to think very hard. "Gosh, I have so many options. I haven't been able to decide yet," he said. Was she going to invite him to something? He tried not to get overexcited in case she was simply being curious. "Well," Monica plowed on through the awkward silence, "my dad and Bernadette are going on a cruise to the Caribbean. It's their 5th wedding anniversary, which means that I'm on my own. So is Riley, since his family are on the other side of the world. So we thought we might do Christmas lunch in the cafe. Would you like to join us?" "I can't think of anything I'd like more," replied Julian, feeling positively giddy. "I don't think I've ever told you how pleased I am that it was you who found my little book, Monica." "I'm very happy I found it too," she replied, putting her hand over his. He realized how unaccustomed he'd become to physical contact. The only person who touched him regularly was his barber. "Julian, you should paint Riley," said Monica. "He'd be a wonderful model." Said Julian, thinking that he wouldn't need many layers. He chided himself. That was not a charitable thought, and he was not that mean-spirited person any longer. "Talking of Riley," said Julian, trying hard to sound casual, "I suspect he might be the teensiest little bit in love with you." "Do you think so?" asked Monica, looking ever so slightly sad. "I'm not at all sure." "Did you write in the book too?" he asked, moving on in case he'd made Monica feel uncomfortable. He imagined that this is how a father would feel, wanting to show interest, but wary of overstepping the line. If that Riley upset her, he'd have Julian to deal with. "Yes, but I'm rather embarrassed about what I wrote now. Although, remember you said, maybe telling that story will change your life? Well, I think just writing it down created some sort of magic, because my life has really changed since then. Everything seems to be coming together. At least, I thought it was. I left the book in a wine bar weeks ago. I wonder who found it. Remember what I wrote next? Or the life of someone you've not yet met." "Well," said Monica, "it's achieved quite a lot already, don't you think?" And she smiled at him, the friend he'd known for a short time that somehow felt like forever.